And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. It is actually Town of Old Saybrook night tonight on the Pete Mezzetti Show, and with me to discuss what's going on with the Town of Old Saybrook is First Selectman Carl Fortuna. Carl, welcome. How are you?
Good to see you again, Pete.
You too, my friend.
As always.
What's new?
What's new? Well, I was at an event about a month ago. It was for the Old Saybrook Chamber of Commerce. And guess who I saw there?
Who?
You.
You did?
Yeah, and wow. I think your audience should know that Pete Mezzetti was named Volunteer of the Year for the Old Saybrook Chamber of Commerce. So can I interview you on that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Why are you Volunteer of the Year? What do you do? And I'm sure your audience knows a little bit about this.
The
Ronald McDonald House?
I'm on the board of directors for the Ronald McDonald House, but I think Judy Sullivan, who's the executive director of the chamber, gave me the award just for all of my community service and everything that I do basically in the community. Yeah,
too bad they didn't give you a little time for a speech.
I know. Bob Bradley told me to keep it brief, so I did
congratulations.
Thank you.
That was very nice.
Well, thank you. And I was going to say, considering you and I haven't seen each other, congratulations to you, because you were reelected
there was an
as
election.
first selectman of the Town of Old Saybrook.
Yep, fourth term.
Right.
Really happy with that. Over the course of the last 6 years, we've just made a heck of a lot of changes.
Oh, yeah.
And I really feel like the town now, after doing a lot of the prep work for the last 6 years, we've made a lot of changes. I think a lot of the dividends are starting to pay off right now. And they will continue into the future, whether I'm there or not. We've made that kind of change. So I'm really excited about that. And a lot of those changes, I think, prepare the town for what's coming down at the state level, which, as you and I both have talked about and know, it really hasn't gotten a lot better since we've last talked. And there's a governor's race this year, and people are going to have the option to try to make a little bit of a change, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. They have to look for the candidate that's going to make some change. If you don't mind, I'm just going to go off on this tangent.
Go for it.
There was an article last week about how there was a surge in revenue at the state of Connecticut level. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
The state got an extra $900 million in revenue. Okay. But most of it is one-time revenue. And a lot of that is from hedge funds. Right. And of course, because of the new tax law at the federal level, there were a lot of capital gains payments, a lot of payments that were paid forward in December that will probably moderate or decline in the next tax payment. Okay. But there was a number in the quarterly tax result that I think should, again, frighten the residents of Connecticut. And the withholding taxes. So W-2 wages.
Yes.
So when people are paid a W-2 wage, federal withholding was down $90 million. So there's less money coming in from employment. And I think that is a precursor to a lot of the revenue problems that you're going to continue to see at the state level. And it's a tough situation. I mean, they're talking about a debt. The next budget, the next biennial budget the discussions begin in January of 2019, so a year from now, for a budget that will be 1920, 2021. Right. And that budget is $4 billion out of whack. So that next governor is going to take office in November, and they're immediately going to have a $4 billion deficit and not have an opportunity to lay any state workers off, because there was recently a union agreement reached under Dan Malloy and the current Democratic legislature, but the whole legislature. They're all responsible for it. And I've said this on your show before, Pete. The problems that the state faces right now are not attributable solely to Dan Malloy, okay? They're not. No. They're generational. They go back 20 years. They go back to John Rowland, who just got out of prison today.
I was going to say that. Yeah, that happened not long ago.
And John Rowland signed a 20-year deal with the unions, that was now about 20-something years ago. Yeah. He signed a 20-year contract with the unions, and as part of that deal, the unions agreed to allow him to move some of the funding for their pensions, the problems we're having right now, funding for pension and health care.
Correct.
Move that into other parts of the budget if he gave them the 20-year deal, which he proposed. So John Rowland started some of this ball rolling down the hill right now, and here we are 20 years later, more than 20 years later, and the state of Connecticut faces a real serious problem. We've seen some serious problems over the last 2 years.
Right.
It isn't going to get a lot better over the next 5. So
No.
the next governor, your viewers need to understand, the next governor is going to have to make some hard choices, whether it's raising taxes, whether it's cutting more jobs. I don't know what the answer is. I do know that raising the income tax is not the answer.
Right.
I know they're looking at the sales tax. I know they're looking at tolls. But one reason, I don't know if you're familiar, there was a report, and I brought the report. I can leave it with you because I think you'll find it interesting reading.
All right.
Remarks on competitiveness for the state of Connecticut. It's kind of an independent group that got together. And they're mostly corporate guys, and they're not all Republicans, they're not all Democrats. There's some unaffiliated folks on there. And they did a study, and they came out with a couple of remarkable statistics.
Sure.
May I share them with you?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
So, Connecticut's economy ranks 38th in the nation. Our infrastructure, 50th. Doing business as a whole is 40th. Our competitiveness in 2001, we were ranked 8th, very high. And now we're at 43rd, competing with other states in terms of our general ability to attract business. We've grown, the Connecticut state economy has grown at 0.3% since 2009. In other words, we've had no growth in the economy.
Right.
We still haven't recovered jobs from 20 years ago. And the reason I say you can't raise income taxes, you might want to raise the sales tax. It's a little bit of a regressive tax, but I think there's talk of raising it. The reason you don't want to raise the income tax is because a lot of that money is going to come from the wealthier folks.
Right.
Okay? And guess what they have an option to do? Leave. When you're very wealthy, you can spend 6 months in Florida, and you can get a net jet and come back and see your kids, on the weekends.
Exactly.
It's going to be cheaper to establish residency out of the state of Connecticut. And this report on competitiveness basically said that 34 of the 169 towns, 36 of the 169 towns comprise 64% of the revenue generated by the state of Connecticut. 357 families in the state of Connecticut contributed 12% of the state's revenue. So think about that. 357 families. So call it 1,000 or 2,000 people contribute 12% of the state's revenue in a state of 3 million people or so. So you raise the income tax on those people, and they will leave. Now, you had a guest in here, the mayor of Middletown.
Yes.
One of the last times I was in here, and I heard him say on your show that it's a myth that the wealthy are leaving the state. It's not a myth. It's a fact.
Right.
And it's happening. And if you continue to tax, continue to increase the taxes, people will continue to leave. There needs to be a bigger structural change in this state, and the next governor is going to have to do that. And Democrat or Republican, they're going to have to look at everything. Everything's on the table.
Exactly.
So that's my opening view. That's my opinion of what should be happening.
That's your opinion.
On a very small issue, and we need to grow the economy. Because when you grow the economy, you throw off more revenue. Okay, so in the town of Old Saybrook, my assessor just finished doing the grand list. That will come due October 1 for taxes payable in July of 2019.
Yes.
And we're looking at an increase in the grand list for that year, and that's going to help us with our budgeting next year. I'll bet we're one of the few towns, either along the shoreline or certainly in central Connecticut, that isn't on the Gold Coast, that is seeing a little bit of an increase in their grand list. It's a very difficult thing to achieve when people are leaving the state. And that just means that people are looking for real estate in the town of Old Saybrook because they find it attractive. They find it attractive in terms of it's a beautiful town,
right,
but they find it attractive in terms of the value of the dollar they get in Old Saybrook.
Exactly.
And I'm proud of what we've done. I think it's really led to the town being a real gem on the southeastern coast that people go to because it has a real special feel to it. That's me talking as first selectman after having been there for 6 years, and feeling that my team, not me, my team, is part of it. So,
so what's going on in town? I hear businesses booming and thriving.
I don't know that business is booming. Look, we all our towns along the shoreline, I think all our towns in the state of Connecticut, we face an economy that is not growing in this state. Not only is it not growing, people are leaving the state of Connecticut. So, it's a battle every day to keep retail in town, right?
Yep.
And retail's one thing, restaurants are another. And restaurants struggle in January, February, and March. And so we have some new businesses coming in.
Oh, excellent.
They keep coming in. We can talk about it in the next segment if you like.
Sure, absolutely.
But we have a new pub coming into town that's going to make some, I think, kind of interesting renovations to an old spot in town that needs to look better.
Aha.
So, but anyway, I'm more, look, as the state goes, so goes Old Saybrook.
Yes.
Okay? And so goes the rest of the municipalities in the state of Connecticut.
Speaking of going places, would you mind sticking around?
Not at all.
We'll be right back.
Every day, the people in our community rally in support of United Way as we strive together to make a big impact to change lives in Middlesex County. From our main streets to our institutions, from our neighborhoods to our town halls and our classrooms, we're working with our partners to create a stronger community. It's an inspiring effort, and we invite you to join us. Volunteer, donate, live united.
These are the dishes that Sandra gave to Goodwill, where Pete found the job that gave him a sense of purpose. This is the dress and the shirt that Madeline gave to Goodwill, where Graciela learned the English that changed her life. This is the dress, the dishes, and the shirt that David and Jackie found at Goodwill. Goodwill, what goes around comes around.
You don't mind if I talk?
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show.
We're having so
Sitting
much
here
fun.
with Carl Fortuna. Carl, welcome back. We are having so much fun. Oh my God. All right, so we talked about
Did I mention to you?
What?
Did I mention to you? Congratulations on winning Volunteer of the Year.
You did.
I did. That was in the beginning.
That was in the first.
I just wanted to get another plug for you.
All right.
How's
Well,
that?
thank you. I appreciate
You do
that.
great work. And
Thank you.
And by the way, I want you also did another event that I showed up at. It was at Luigi's Restaurant.
Yes.
I don't know what month that was. October. Yeah, October. And you did a little fundraiser for Ronald McDonald House at Luigi's.
We did.
And I showed up, and there you were.
Yeah.
And you raised some funds.
We did.
What did you raise?
We did. We actually raised for a first-time event $2,200. We raised $2,258, and as a matter of fact, that check presentation is coming up very soon.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So congratulations
Thank
to you.
you.
You really deserve kudos for that.
Thank you.
It's a very deserving cause, and you do a good job for them.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So, Carl, we were talking a little bit about
The state.
The state. Well, let's stay off the state for a little while. Let's talk about local. Let's talk about the town of Old Saybrook.
So when you're in an environment like we are at the state level, and by the way, I'm not giving up on Connecticut, okay?
No.
Connecticut is going through a very tough period There will come a time when we're on the other side of this.
Right.
Okay? And as I said, it's going to take bold leadership at the top to help us get there. Maybe
Right.
quicker, maybe a little longer. But in the interim, all the towns are facing a lot of pressure at the state level. As you know, educational cost-sharing dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Old Saybrook went from $800,000, excuse me, $800,000 to zero.
Right.
We used to get $1.2 million in total funding. We're down to about $500,000 this year.
Yeah.
So what do we do on a local level? We look for every savings opportunity we can. It's
Right.
never business as usual. We had a couple positions retire. We had a lot of retirements actually
Okay.
in the last 2 years. And whenever I get a retirement, it's an opportunity for me perhaps to restructure the job.
Right.
So we had a retirement in a department for an administrative person, okay? She was full-time and she worked for one department. What we did is we combined we combined 60 hours of personnel into 50 hours.
Okay.
So this person was 37 and we had 2 other part-timers that totaled 60.
Okay.
We combined the total hours to 50 and we have a 30-hour a week and a 20-hour a week position, and we have now trained them to do more positions in town hall. They are not department specific anymore.
Okay.
So in other words, they can be called into the tax collector's office
Yep.
if there's a need there. They can be in the building official office. They can be in the selectman's office. So the idea is to gain some flexibility, reduce costs, and make better customer service for the town of Old Saybrook.
Right.
So we were able to do that. We restructured our accounting department. I've been on this show a few times. We made a huge investment in an accounting software program,
Okay.
about a $200,000 investment. That's probably going to have a return on investment of 3 to 4 years, which is pretty good for a software system.
Okay.
And that also led to a restructuring in the treasurer's office. Not too long ago, Pete, in December,
Yeah.
we refinanced
Okay.
$6 million worth of town bonds. And
Wow.
Yep, and that's going to lead to some savings, not in the budget we're preparing right now, but in the next budget.
Okay.
So we do these things to try to take advantage of the market. So with the refunding, it's all about the treasury rate. And we got the treasury rate a little bit lower in December, and it's gone up about 50 basis points since. And so the refunding environment is kind of gone right now for the town of Old Saybrook.
Okay.
But we got it at the moment we need to get it at. And then a year before that, we refunded $10 million in bonds. So we've had a lot of savings, probably a total of $1.3 million in interest that the town of Old Saybrook will never pay.
Wow.
Because we were on top of it and getting it to market. One other thing I think I've talked about on this show, but it's happening right now as we speak, is our streetlight project.
Yes.
So,
Right.
Where do you live? You live in Clinton.
I live in Clinton.
Maybe we shouldn't give too many addresses away, but
No.
I know Clinton has
Yeah.
changed their streetlights over to LED streetlights.
Yes, recently.
The town of Madison did, and the town of Old Saybrook, we have 1,080 streetlights.
Yeah.
Hard to believe sometimes.
Yes.
But we have already. They started last week, and I think they've done somewhere in the neighborhood of 300-400 streetlights converted over to LED streetlights.
Ooh.
Which is awesome.
Very nice.
And I'll tell you what's great about that. So
up?
we bought our streetlights.
Yep.
So the town of Old Saybrook pays $154,000 a year to Eversource
Okay, sure.
to keep our streetlights on.
Yes.
Buying the streetlights and converting them over to LED lights will reduce that cost to probably $25,000. So from $150,000 to $25,000. Now we had to take out a loan
Right.
to buy the conversion and buy
Yeah,
the poles.
sure.
But that is going to be about a 3-year return on our investment. So,
Wow.
and then those savings are forever.
Oh, totally.
Those savings, that's $100,000 a year. That's $1 million over the next 10 years that the people of Old Saybrook won't have to pay. And there's a newer initiative that I'm looking at our transfer station.
Okay.
The Connecticut State legislature has passed a law saying that we need to throw away less garbage. Okay?
Sure.
So right now, when you go to the garbage, an average garbage transfer station or repository, South
Yep.
Meadows in Hartford, it's 60% trash, 40% recyclables.
Right.
The state of Connecticut is trying to flip that to 60%
60%
recyclable
recyclables,
and 40%
trash.
And one of the ways you get there, and we're going to have this discussion in town, is what they call pay as you throw. So right now, people can come to the town of Old Saybrook transfer station
Yeah.
and just throw garbage away.
Right.
They don't have to pay for it. It's built into their taxes,
Gotcha.
essentially.
Right.
But pay as you throw is they would have to buy a garbage bag. They would have to buy garbage bags for $2, and they would only get a certain amount a month. So the idea is to encourage them to generate less waste
Right.
and recycle more.
Correct.
And that's how the state of Connecticut is going to get where they're going. And that is a mandate that must be fulfilled by 2024. So it's not that far into
No,
the
it's
future
not.
that we need to start recycling a heck of a lot more. We were talking a little bit about economic development.
Yes.
So it's a battle out there.
It is.
Keeping our restaurants and retail markets open.
Right.
But one of the things we're doing is we're doing we're not doing two things. We're doing one thing, but we have a new pub coming in that I
Okay.
want to advertise.
All
It's
right.
called the Little Pub.
Aha.
The Little Pub is going to open at the old Stella Doro Mr. Jalapeno location.
Yep, sure.
And they're going to do a renovation of the building. The Little Pub is a pub that has 4 other locations in Fairfield County. New Canaan, Milford, Fairfield, and Cos Cob.
Okay.
And now they've chosen Old Saybrook because it's an awesome town.
There you go.
Number 2, in the economic development budget that Susie Beckman
Yes,
has put forward,
absolutely.
one of your favorite guests, I might add.
Exactly.
We're putting together a marketing budget for the town of Old Saybrook. We're going to market the town.
I think we talked about that last time
We
she
did,
was on with
but
me.
we didn't. We put 10,000
right.
aside this year.
Yep.
Okay. Next year we're going to try to increase that, if the Board of Finance allows it, to 17,000, and we're going to keep it in the budget so that every year we are marketing the town of Old Saybrook to $17,000. And you know what that's going to do? Maybe it allows us to attract some folks from out of state.
Right.
Because I think I've said to you in the past when we've been on this show, when I'm watching a baseball game in the summer,
Right.
I see more ads for the Catskills
Exactly.
than I do for anything else. And we don't do the same thing in other states. So maybe the town of Old Saybrook can be advertising in New York City to get some of those folks to come out and see what a wonderful part of the world we live in.
Exactly.
You've been on the Connecticut River.
Oh, yeah.
The Connecticut River is one of the most spectacular places in the world.
Totally.
It's one of the last rivers in the world that will never be developed at its basin because it's not deep enough,
Right.
number one. So, to get people to understand the attraction of what southeastern Connecticut offers is one of our goals, so that people come to the town. But we're, financially, the town is in great shape, better than it's ever been. Our pension is nearly fully funded. Our rainy day fund went from 6% to 12% over the last 6 years.
Excellent.
I mean, I am so proud of my team,
Right.
and the way the town has responded, because I think we are so well positioned to weather what's coming down the pike at the state of Connecticut.
You know what else we have to talk about?
No.
Yes. Shoreline East.
Shoreline East. So, just very quickly,
Yes.
because I know we're getting late on
Right.
time here. We're
I guess
having.
there's an announcement.
Yeah, your folks may see that there's a press conference coming up.
Soon.
I know when we're taping,
Right.
right?
It's coming up soon.
By the time this show airs, it will probably have happened.
Yes.
But DOT is talking about reducing Shoreline East service. Basically, I think nothing on the weekends almost, and a lot less during the week. I know. So
Really?
in Old Saybrook, for instance, they built this $4 million DOT.
Yeah.
And I have the utmost respect for the Commissioner of
Oh, absolutely.
Transportation, Jim Rediker. He does a fabulous job.
I talked to him today.
Yeah, and he's dealing with the hand he's dealt.
Yes.
Okay, but they built a $4 million parking lot in Old Saybrook. We have a brand new development right next to
Yes,
that
you
parking
do.
lot. We just put $1.3 million of federal funds into rebuilding North Main Street, and now they're going to take away a lot of that commuter rail service that goes to New Haven and New London.
Right.
I mean, it's really a bit of an outrage as to the state of our transportation in the state, and the governor has talked
Right.
about it. We need a transportation lockbox, whether it's tolls or an increase in the gas tax. And the tolls, I'm sure you'll get on.
Oh, yeah.
You should get on Representative Carney
Yep.
or Senator Linares or Senator Formica.
Yep.
You really should, because
Oh, yeah.
they can talk about the whole toll thing and the proposals that are on the table much better than I would be able to. So, but I'm worried about the Shoreline East service because I know people rely on it, and I know you take it.
Oh, I do.
I mean, so
I do.
it needs to be there for people to get to work, and quite frankly, for people to travel between towns. I've taken it to New Haven when I've
Yeah.
met friends out.
Right.
So Shoreline East is really important to our communities.
As a matter of fact, I took it not long ago when we were. Actually, you know what, Carl? That's
What?
it. We're done. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. On behalf of Carl Fortuna, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.